Thank you so much for taking the time. My name is Ed Easton Jr. from USA Today's NFL Wire. Like I said, I appreciate it. I know you have a busy weekend coming up, and I'm just happy to get into it.
Sure thing, man. Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. I do want to talk about the California Classic Health Flag Football Camp and your involvement in it. Can you just explain exactly what you're doing and obviously the amazing cause?
Well, Shamika Taylor reached out to me and expressed interest in having me involved. Just a lot of it is based upon my South Bay Area roots. Growing up in Gilroy, 30 miles from San Jose, this will be at Pioneer High School on Saturday. Just being somewhat of that local guy, that local celebrity, having played at San Jose State University, played for the 49ers, there's a lot of familiarity there. And it's something that I really hold close and dear to my heart, working with the youth, not only just coaching the game of football, but how that applies into life and how everything that they can learn on that field through teamwork, through dedicating themselves to this craft, uh, hard work, all of the things that they will deal with, adversity, health, creating a better life for themselves with their own health, being stronger, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally. All those things just really are in my wheelhouse as far as how I approach life, and to be able to be out there working with our youth, with teenagers, teaching the game of football, of flag football, and then also the health aspects of CPR, of teaching them how to deal with emergency situations. All those things are just key for our youth to be knowledgeable about and be able to, in case of emergency, be able to know how to respond.
It's definitely that's a great message and just obviously you're talking about like cardiac arrest and that is the focus of the camp. Do you have any history that you know of where that was an issue, whether it's somebody you know or even something you may have witnessed where someone was dealing with that type of issue?
My dad went through it when I was a young man. I was in my early 20s, 20 years old, when he actually suffered his first heart attack, going down to a knee. I wasn't around him at that current time, but he was coaching the game of football, and his fellow coaches were the ones that really stepped in to aid him and also to advise him, like, you need to get this checked out. You need to get your health checked out. This scare could lead to an even worse or uh, a more painful effect, in the sense of death, if you don't get your body checked, if you don't take care of your health. So it does hit close to home. My dad ended up going through a five-way bypass back in 1990, when bypass surgery had just been introduced, and he had five clogged arteries. And so shortness of breath, going to a knee, struggling to get air, all of those things were something that were very close to me with my father. And I'm fortunately that today I still have my dad around, because people recognized the symptoms around him and really pushed him to not be the tough guy. Hey, give in to going to get checked and do the right thing for yourself, and not just for yourself, but for your family. He not only had me, I have two younger sisters, my mom. So at 84 years old today, he's still plugging away. But, I'm thankful for the fact that people could see and understand what was going on around him.
I mean, that's obviously an amazing story and just, happy that everything is working out. I do want to obviously stick with when you say you're working with a lot with youth sports. You're working with a high school football right now. Just how does it feel just working, with a team, working with young players, and they're seeing you? You're Jeff Garcia, multiple time Pro Bowler. How has that reaction been, and just I guess adjusting to just working more within youth sports?
I've been blessed to, first of all, I have young kids myself. They're not so young, but they're teenagers. So I've been able to coach my boys and my girls in all sports. but I really truly love being able to coach the game of football, whether it was flag football that they were playing, which my daughter plays at a high level and is hopefully going to be playing in college here in the next couple years, because that's what she would love to pursue. And it's becoming such a big growth of sport right now, especially for young females. So that is exciting for her. And then coaching my boys in Pop Warner, just being able to be around them, to instill in them uh, team chemistry, work ethic, learning plays, executing plays, understanding that every single player on the field together collectively is accountable to each other, being able to coach those lessons and then taking it to the high school level. Obviously, with each level, I've coached at the professional level, I've coached now at the high school level, and truly impacting these young men who are still in a place where you can guide, inspire, and direct them to hopefully better decisions in their life. Um, uh, uh, Having goals and priorities that are team based and self focused in the sense of being a better person in the community. All these things that we instill and we work on in the game of football translate, and that's what's so exciting and so fortunate for me and blessed for me to be able to share that and coach these young men up and get them to understand that they're capable of bigger and better in their life.
Definitely. And, I obviously got to talk about just even your story and the way you overcame so much to make it to the NFL and not just make it, but be one of the best quarterbacks during your era. Uh, can you just take us back a little bit to going through the situation, going through the draft situation, not getting drafted, and just your journey and like what was your mindset like going through that, not initially getting drafted, and then going through the journey you did.
Of course, sitting there on draft day and having local media with me because I was still in my backyard, basically being at San Jose State. And it was a little bit embarrassing, to be honest with you. And I didn't have maybe uh, that notoriety or the talk around me that was going to lead me to believe that I'd be a first or second day draft pick. But I thought that somebody would find the value in me and want to bring that value to their team. And when it was all said and done, the draft went through. Of course, I didn't hear my name. And then obviously the free agent calls start to be made by coaches and by scouts to players who they want to bring into camp. And I didn't get any of those calls either. And it was disappointing. It was a little bit discouraging, but I was fortunate. I felt blessed that if it's not the NFL, I had an opportunity to go to the Canadian Football League. And I did have one conversation with the coach who was the quarterback coach with the Green Bay Packers at the time. It was Steve Mariucci. He called me and he said, "Hey, Jeff, we're loaded at quarterback right now with Favre, Brunell, Ty Detmer. If you have an opportunity to go to Canada, go get some experience up there, and you never know what could happen down the road." And, I took it for what it was. And fortunately, Calgary was going to give me an opportunity to make their team. And I was going to get to continue to do what I love to do, play the game of football, and didn't have to really grow up yet, so to speak. And so at 23 years old, that was my choice. That was my option. And I went up there and and nothing was guaranteed. I had to still make that team. And that first year, I competed to be the third string quarterback, not to start, not to be the backup to the starter. I had to compete with another rookie just to make the team to be the number 3 guy. And so, for me, it's all about the opportunities and being prepared for that opportunity to strike, to take advantage of that opportunity. It really came down to one preseason game. I was going to get a quarter in it. It was the fourth quarter. The game was on the line. It was tied 14-14 at the time when I stepped on the field. And in my 2 drives, I went 6 for 8. I threw 2 touchdown passes. We end up winning the game. And at the end of the game, the offensive coordinator argued with the American scouts saying, "Hey, Jeff Garcia showed me something in this game. I want to keep him as my number 3. whereas the American Scout was leaning the other direction. So you just never know. I mean, we're talking 1994, 30, 30 years ago, I guess it is, 31 years ago, that my life could have taken a whole different direction. Could have been somewhere else. Like maybe I would have been coaching. Maybe I would have pursued education. Who knows? But fortunately for me, in that one moment, I took advantage of the opportunity. And, it all came because I was prepared mentally and physically. And that's the aspect of life. You got to be ready when the opportunity strikes. You can't just say, yeah, I'm going to do it. You better be doing the things that are preparing you mentally and physically to strike when that opportunity presents itself. And it's all throughout life. It's not just in football, it's every aspect of life. And fortunately for me, that's how I looked at life. And I've always felt like no situation is bigger than what I can handle. I know I can handle it. And, that gave me the opportunity to play the game of football. I was blessed for 5 years in Canada. I even thought, well, if it's a 10, 15-year career in Calgary or in the Canadian Football League, then that's what it is. And then all of a sudden, things change. We win a championship. I get the call from Bill Walsh. He's coming in to working with the 49ers on the management side, and they bring me in for a workout. And again, in that workout, you got to be ready to showcase your abilities. And it's not easy. It's you and maybe a receiver. Maybe you're throwing to some equipment managers. Who knows what it is? But you better show that you have the ability or the capability that can translate at that level. Unfortunately for myself, I showed that I was capable, and that's when the contract was offered.
Man, that is amazing. And I just love the way like the journey happened and going to Canada and just making a name for yourself even more. And like that's the stuff you love to hear. I do want to just even go back to your playing style and the way you were. You always were able to scramble. You were able to move around. You were one of those versatile quarterbacks in a time where I feel like it was starting. You starting to see more quarterbacks like you enter the league. And I'm just curious, you see the way league is now where there are so many versatile quarterbacks like a Patrick Mahomes. And I make that comparison just to like being able to throw in a run, being able to improvise. When you see a quarterback like him today and think about you back in 1994, do you feel like if you had came out in this era, it would have been a lot different?
It's funny because my boys will look at like mock drafts, right? Like, where would I land if the draft was done over with the quarterbacks of my day, right? And I think I end up in some of those in the first round, like the number 9, number 10 pick. And it's funny how the game has transitioned. And yes, I think that sometimes I was 20 plus years ahead of my time because coming out now, it's not a matter of, well, how big is he? Can he stand in the pocket and throw the ball down the field? Those weren't the things that I was going to walk off the bus and impress you with. It was more about, hey, my versatility, my ability to make plays when things break down around me. Yes, I could handle and run an offense from within the pocket, but you could also utilize my legs and get me outside of the pocket. And that's where, yes, today's quarterback, they look for that agility. They want to see that agility. Not everything's going to happen according to plan within the pocket. And if things break down, you got to be able to extend the play. Baker Mayfield is probably a guy that has been compared to me in the past, or that, our names kind of run in the same on the same kind of breath, in the sense that similar in size, similar in grit and style. But yes, just watching the game today, just seeing how quarterbacks play, it definitely brings me back to how I played and how I could have really been something in this day and age, considering how the quarterbacks are looked at. That being said, I made the most of what I had to make the most of. Back then it was Randall Cunningham was the guy. Steve Young were those guys that were mobile, that could extend plays. Obviously, it started to happen with Donovan McNabb and with myself and Michael Vick and guys like that, but they were still wanting that Troy Aikman lookalike, that 6'4", 225 pocket passer. Everybody from a GM standpoint or ownership felt like that's what they needed. Dan Marino, right? And the game just evolved and the athletes became bigger, faster, stronger. And in order to maximize your presence on the field, you needed to be able to change the pocket location. You couldn't just afford to be going straight back in the pocket and letting guys like Reggie White and Lawrence Taylor come smash you in the face. They'll kill you. So they had to figure out ways to start to move the pocket and get outside. And, Mike Shanahan was one of the best to really start to evolve that with what he did with John Elway there in Denver, and obviously helping them get to two Super Bowl championships, two Super Bowl titles, and just that style with the run game and then being able to run the play action and movement game off of the run game.
Definitely. And I do want to ask, you brought up Mike Shanahan. I do want to ask about one of your other former coaches, Andy Reid. Obviously, it's looking like he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, even though we don't know how things are nowadays. But what were your thoughts on just Andy Reid as a head coach and his system?
Yeah, Andy had a great system. I really loved how Andy took the West Coast offense, and the West Coast offense with Bill Walsh was an extension of the run game, the short passing game, the quick slants, the hitches by your receivers, getting the running backs involved in the swings and in the flats, those type of things. Well, Andy Reid took it a step further and created the downfield passing game. He added the explosive plays down the field. Obviously, you have to have some receivers that can get over the top, but he did a great job of creating big explosive plays, giving Donovan or me, when I stepped in, a chance to throw the ball down the field based upon what we did within the system. And Coach Reid just had a cool, calm style about him. He never was like that roller coaster ride of emotion. Very intelligent. Marty Morningwig was the offensive coordinator at the time. When I was there, I had already had him in San Francisco prior with my first couple years there. So there was familiarity in the offense already, but there was definitely learning and growing in the sense of how they attacked down the field. And I love that. I love that about Coach Reid. And now with Mahomes, and with the speed that they've had over the years at times, you can see how they get beyond coverage and they use sideline to sideline as well as goal line to goal line. And that's what was making Kansas City so difficult to defend, because they use the entire field.
Oh, they definitely did. Obviously, Jeff, thank you so much for your time. I have one more question for you, and this is something a game I feel like a lot of people bring up, and it's one of, in my opinion, one of the greatest playoff games I've ever seen. Your game, and this was the wild card matchup against the Giants, the 49ers and Giants. What the biggest that comeback? Like I said, a lot of people still discuss it. What was going on through your mind as well as the team, knowing that you had that big deficit at home to be able to make that comeback?
It was great to just actually relive that game just within the last few months. I did interviews, it got showcased again, and just to recall the plays that were happening, especially when we were down 24, obviously, what it meant for us to get back in the game. A lot of things had to all of a sudden fall right into place on defense. I mean, there were key drops that took place on their side of the ball that gave us a chance. And obviously, the no huddle offense and just starting to just execute, make plays, get the ball into our guys' hands so that they could create opportunity. And I think there was a relative calm over us. The key was getting that first score before the third quarter ended. Because when you look at 24 points, we got 8. We got the 2-point conversion. Now, realistically, it's only a 2-score game. And we had an entire quarter to do that. And things, like I said, had to fall our way. They pumped the brakes on offense. They were going up and down the field on us. But it's almost like they started to try to control the clock, ball control. and it backfired on them. 3 and outs. We got the ball back. Special teams mix ups and mess ups. We had a big punt return penalty that gave us great field position. They missed 2 field goals in the fourth quarter. So all those things that transpired, I mean, really led to a crazy finish. And, one of the greatest experiences and moments that I've ever had playing the game of football, and to do it right there in front of the Niner faithful, right there at Candlestick in the old stadium. I mean, it was just an awesome, awesome feeling, and one that, for me, just is a highlight of my career that will always be there with me. And it's oftentimes that I hear from people about that game, and they still remember it, whether they were watching it on TV or they're in the stands.
Definitely is a all-time classic wild card game. Jeff, thank you so much for your time, man. I really appreciate it. And the event this weekend should go amazing.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. I mean, people will, you know, kids that show up, they're going to be taught a great things about the game of football, and then also just great things about life. And that's what it's all about, man. This is one of the greatest games in the world that helps the transition from the field into everyday life, that gives you a chance to really make the most of your life. And that's what I love about football.
Love to hear it, man. Thank you again so much.
You got it. You got it. Take care. Have a great week.
Take care.